We'll read a statement, and if it applies to you, please stand up.
Please stand up if your parent or guardian was in the military. Thank you. Please stand up.
Please stand if your grandparent was in the military. Thank you. You may be seated.
Please stand if your parent or guardian is still in active duty. Please stand if you know someone who was in the military closely. Thank you. You may be seated.
Please stand if you were in the military. So much for joining us today. Before we get started, could you each introduce yourself?
My name is Ann Carlson. I was in the United States Air Force from 1976 to 1980, and then 2 years reserve.
I am Colby Watts. I was in the Air Force from 2019 till just this past June, and I graduated from Getchell here back in 2019.
Now, Andrew and I are going to ask you a couple questions. Our first question is, what was your job in the military?
I was an aircraft loadmaster on the C-17, so basically we carried passengers and cargo of all types, all throughout the world, and supported humanitarian efforts and wherever Uncle Sam called us.
I was an aircraft fuel system specialist. Not an important job unless you want to get somewhere with gasoline or, JP4 in your engine, in your tank, and then your engine. So I worked on all inventory in the United States Air Force. I did KC-135, the ones that refuel in air. That was my main mission. Did C-5s, did fighters, did helicopters, and that's all I got. Thank you.
What was a special moment in your service to you?
I think one of the most special moments in the service for me was I was not an American citizen when I joined the Air Force, and realizing that I was choosing to be a part of the United States, and not only choosing to be a part of the United States, but in the Air Force fighting for this country. So, and when we were on Posture 5, keep in mind I'm old, old. I was in the Vietnam era, so we did what's called a Posture 5, which means we were fully geared up. We were sitting on the flight line in the plane, ready to launch. We sat there for 11 and a half hours. So that was the point for me that I realized I was very, very proud to be a part of this country. So I became an American citizen.
I think probably one of the most special moments I was a part of, I was deployed to Qatar back in June of 2021, and we were flying in and out of Afghanistan to be able to take out like any remaining people, cargo, and just it was very surreal, like being born into a war, like post 9/11, and like being able to help kind of end that and get us out of there. So I think it was pretty surreal to be a part of that.
Thank you. And why did you guys choose to join the military?
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of you who are seniors or going to be seniors next year, and you guys were not sure exactly what you wanted to do. So I was like, well, I don't really want to go to college right now. I think since I'm graduating at 17, what better than to go serve for a few years and gain some perspective and grow up a little bit that way. So I think it's the best decision I've ever made.
I also joined the Air Force when I was 17, which means your parents have to sign for you. That's the only difference. I joined the Air Force for the education. And again, while I was in the Air Force, I remember writing my parents a letter because you leave boot camp, then you go to tech school. And I wrote my parents a letter when I was in boot camp about how much they matured while I was gone. I couldn't believe it. They were getting stuff now.
Thank you so much. How did being in the military change your perspective?
When I joined the military, never in a million years would I have ever known that I'm a gearhead. A gearhead is someone who works on engines. I've worked on quads and bikes and rode them, and I never in a million years would have realized I was someone who could turn wrenches and enjoy it. I love working on engines. I would never have been exposed to that had I been a civilian going to college and doing what I thought. My dad was an accountant. I would have probably gone that route. So being a gearhead, I'm a gearhead. I never knew.
Definitely after like going to a bunch of different parts of the world, I think you kind of realize how like lucky you are to be in a place where you don't always have to worry about food or for your safety. It's just a lot of sense of security here in the United States, and I think seeing more unfortunate life circumstances, it definitely makes you count your blessings here and be grateful for kind of like being in the United States. Nothing's perfect, but I think I wake up every day and I'm glad I'm here and not anywhere else.
And would you say those still affect you today? Like, do you still work on gears and stuff today? Okay. What was your biggest challenge you faced in the military?
I think time management, because I was always gone traveling and was not home a lot. I think my last year in, I was gone for over half the year, or I think almost every year I was gone and away from home for over 180 days. So I think definitely finding the time to take some personal time, take a step back, and just regroup and do what makes you happy. And I think that was probably the biggest challenge I had to overcome.
My biggest challenge in the Air Force was being a woman in the Air Force. Not only being a woman in the Air Force, but being a woman in a career field that was not tracked for women when I went in. When I went in, we weren't even issued fatigues. You know, those pickle suit or the camo or all of that. Women were not even issued that. We were in what's called the Women's Air Force. So we were called WAFs, W-A-F-S. And we were never, there was many career fields that were not open to us. So they expected people to do clerical and supply and all of that, but none of us were expected to go into a mechanical career field or be where, keep in mind, I went active duty 76. Women had only been active, the Air Force and Army used to be the same thing. So they didn't separate that out until in the early 70s. So I was new to that. So fighting for women, number one, and making older, my age now, Air Force sergeants realize I can do my job. When I first started, it was, there were two types of guys that I worked, and keep in mind, I was the only woman in my career field. I was the only female that did fuel cell at McConnell Air Force Base, Wichita, Kansas. So my job entailed crawling up inside the wings of the planes, because those are all fuel tanks, and crawling up inside the aft body, upper deck tanks, those type of things. When you have a fuel tank that's as big as from there to here, from the wall to here, that's a fuel tank. And when you get inside there, there's a whole bunch of things that happen, like number one, static in your hair. you don't realize all of the things that cause static electricity. Static electricity, when you're in a room that is nothing but gas fumes, is not a good thing. So they had no accommodations for us to change into our jumpsuits, which we went in.
Don't hold the bottom.
Don't hold the bottom.
Just
Okay, fine. You have to be smarter than the microphone. Failed. So when we used to change into our jumpsuits, there were no accommodations made for us. Where do we change to go into fuel entry? When we have to put up our hair, how do we put up our hair? And so we had to have special hats that were made. There was no restroom. We had a state-of-the-art hangar that Boeing now currently has as their paint hangar. McConnell Air Force Base had just built that hangar. It had ecosystem, ergonomic systems and everything that would just take the fumes out. But there was no women's restroom. So when we would, I mean, it's just amazing the things that they hadn't thought about when they brought women into the career fields that they had. So fighting for women was where I was. And it wasn't really a fight, it was just I wanted to do my job. Leave me alone. So again, back to the two types I worked with. There was one that they would do it for you because they were gentlemen and thought to do that their whole life, right? I really like those guys. Seriously. When I'm carrying around a 50-pound air refueling pump, it's like, thanks, you're great. But we learned to accommodate. Then there was the guys who sabotaged us. There was a lot of sabotage. They didn't want us there. They didn't want us in their world. But that's changed dramatically. So I didn't do the job they did. I did the same job they did, but I didn't do it the same way. I got a radio flyer wagon and pulled my 50 to 75-pound air refueling pumps out onto the truck, loaded it on the trunk, and got on the plane. They could carry them out. Okay, you got the same job, it took me a few minutes longer. When an airplane doesn't have any fuel in it, the handle to open the crew chief hatch is clear the hell up there. Heck. I said heck up there. Mr. Zimmerman, I said heck. I'm sure that's what it was. Anyway, way up there. So what I would do would be take a milk cart out of the truck that took us out there, jump on the milk cart, jump up and open the door. Big deal. It took me 2 seconds longer, but those were the things that we had to overcome. Okay, I've talked too much. Bye.
thank you for that. What was your favorite duty station while you were in?
Well, I was only stationed at one, and it was right down in Tacoma at Joint Base Lewis McChord. Definitely wasn't what my original plan was, to be going active duty, means stationed in your same home state. But it was great, I loved it, and I still got to go everywhere, so.
So when I was in, keep in mind those of you who know, I became an American citizen. So I had already been to Europe. They tried to send me to Turkey, which is not a good place for women to be because we would never been able to wear our uniforms. We would not be able to dress without our faces covered walking out of the base. So they tried to send me to Spain. They tried to send me to England. They tried to send me to Portugal. And I said, wait a minute. Let other people who haven't been there go. I want to see the United States. So I am now down, at 65 years old, I'm now down to one state. Vermont is the only state I have not been into, as most of it was the military.
Who inspired you to join the military, or who were your mentors in the military?
Well, my great-grandfather served in the Army Air Corps, which is what the Air Force was back in World War II, before it became the Air Force. So he served in that. Then my grandfather on my mom's side, he was in the Army, Vietnam era, and he's like, hey, you should go do this, it'll be great, you're young, why not? I'm like, yeah, that sounds actually great. So I think they inspired me most in the family, but there was a lot of people on the inside for my own leadership in the military who were very passionate about doing what you want to do. They didn't beg me to stay in. They were like, hey, do what you want to do. Like, this has to come to an end at some point, and yeah, they inspired me a lot.
My inspiration, again, not an American citizen, was my older brother. There were 4 of us children of my parents that immigrated from Ireland, and my older brother went in the Navy. I went in the Air Force. I was number 2. My younger brother went in the Army. So and the other one went to Hollywood. I don't even get that. Anyway, so my older brother was my mentor because Air Force, of course, we had to do it better than the Navy. And then my brother joined because he had to do it better than us. Yeah, right, whatever.
It's awesome. I think you played such a big role in both of your lives. What was the biggest lesson you learned while you were in?
That's probably the hardest question because I really had to think about this, and I think what I really gained from the military was that it's good to do hard things and to be uncomfortable and to push yourself, because I went to boot camp 6 days after graduating high school. I'm like, oh, all my friends are enjoying their summer, getting ready to go to college, and here I am, like, about to leave pretty much everything. So I think stepping into uncomfortable situations can really benefit you and like growing up. So.
That's a good answer. Do you think that the experiences in the military like push your boundaries a lot?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, from the moment you get to boot camp, you're getting screamed at and spit out in your face. Not like purposely trying to spit on you, but like they're screaming at you. So, I
They
think.
gleek on you.
Yeah, exactly.
Gleek.
Yeah, I mean, I've had to go to uncomfortable situations and be around people who are somewhat of a threat, but yeah, I think definitely that really kind of changed my perspective and made me grow up. So.
So, I concur with his answer about taking on challenges, because first of all, I got in there and it wasn't that tough. Did you think it was that tough?
Like the people, or?
The whole boot camp thing.
No, I mean, like the first week's kind of like the shock and awe. You're like, this is not what I expected. Like you can go and watch all the YouTube videos you want, but you're still not going to know what it's like until you go into it.
True.
No, it wasn't that hard.
So what I learned, yeah, it wasn't. So if you are the person that's in boot camp that's the loudest, they're going to pick on you. If you're the person in boot camp that doesn't say a word, they're going to pick on you. And when I say they, I mean the military is going to try and calm you down or draw you out. So if you're the guy that goes through like this, middle of the road, don't make any waves, do your job, do it as best you can, you're golden. They don't mess with you at all.
Thank you so much. That concludes our questions. We want to thank you both for sharing your stories, insights, and experiences. Can we please get one more big round of applause for our speakers?